Me now, MSNBC contributors Hugh Hewitt. He's the host of the Hugh Hewitt Show on the Salem Radio Network. E.J. Dionne, columnist at the Washington Post, also co-editor of the new book, We Are the Change We Seek. This is a collection of some of President Obama's speeches. Thank you both for joining us. And I actually want to start talking about this question of confirmation battles that are shaping up here. Democrats right now basically calling for a pause, saying, hey, look, when it comes to financial disclosures, when it comes to ethics requirements, these nominees have not put in all of the paperwork, all of the materials, all of the disclosures that are necessary. Here's what Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader, had to say about that first yesterday.
We confirmed 7 cabinet appointments the day President Obama was sworn in. We didn't like most of them either, but he won the election. So all of these little procedural complaints are related to their frustration at having not only lost the White House, but having lost the Senate. I understand that, but we need to sort of grow up here and get past that. We need to have the national security team in place on day one, and papers are still coming in.
So that's Mitch McConnell, the Republican Senate leader, yesterday. But now, just in the last couple hours, Chuck Schumer, his Democratic counterpart, he has sent a letter to Mitch McConnell. It's actually the same letter. You can see here Chuck Schumer just changing the address at the top there. This is a letter that Mitch McConnell wrote 8 years ago when Barack Obama was becoming president. And you have here Mitch McConnell as the Republican leader in the Senate back then saying, we expect the following standards will be met for all of Obama's nominees before there's any action on confirmation. Some of those standards included clearance by the Office of Government Ethics. That has been standard protocol in the past. That is something Democrats are saying right now, hey, you don't have for these nominees clearance from the Office of Ethics yet. Until you have that, we can't have action here. Hugh Hewitt, let me start with you. Chuck Schumer says this is hypocrisy from Mitch McConnell. Does he have a point?
No, Steve, I'm suffering from what Meryl Streep had last night, laryngitis. But I only need to say 51. It only takes 51 votes. And we have the Reid rule working on our side. And so maybe I'll throw it over to EJ while I drink some coffee. All of them are going to get confirmed. Every single one of them are going to get confirmed.
We are going to give you hazard pay for doing this segment today. Hugh, while you work on coming up with some water there or something, some hot tea maybe. Let me bring E.J. Dionne into this. Well, so E.J., Hugh says, look, bottom line, the numbers. Republicans have the votes they need to confirm who they want. You did have Democrats change those filibuster rules a few years ago. You can't filibuster a nominee for the cabinet anymore. So Democrats don't like this. Can they do anything about it?
Well, first of all, before you, get well, you. I feel for you. I've been there. The issue here is that, yes, Obama's nominees got confirmed, but a lot of them had been vetted. A lot of them, Hillary Clinton, had been extensively vetted because she ran for public office. The same was true with Kathleen Sebelius. Mitch McConnell's letter from 8 years ago ought to apply today, that all of these officials ought to go through a process where the Office of Government Ethics can vet them to make sure there aren't problems that they don't run into later on. And it was really significant that Walter Schaub, the director of the Office of Government Ethics, wrote a very strong letter on this, and his last sentence was pretty powerful. He said, for as long as I remain director, OGE's staff and agency ethics officials will not succumb to pressure to cut corners and ignore conflicts of interest. I mean, we went through a campaign where the Republicans made Hillary Clinton's ethics one of the centerpieces of their campaign. Are we now supposed to say none of these issues matter anymore because we're talking about Donald Trump's nominees for the cabinet? They may well go through on a vote, but they ought to be vetted. People who work for the government ought to be vetted.
I also want to bring up the question of Russia here. Obviously, some of this might have gotten lost a bit over the weekend. You had the Fort Lauderdale tragedy on Friday. Then, of course, the weekend was here. But you had the intelligence report, at least the public version, that came out Friday afternoon saying, hey, look, Russia from Putin on down was interested in trying to harm politically Hillary Clinton in the election. You had the response from Donald Trump over the weekend, which was to say, hey, he met with the intelligence community. He said it was a very good meeting, but he did then spend most of the weekend basically trying to make the point that, hey, the Democrats made themselves vulnerable to hacking. The Republicans, he said, protected themselves better. You also had this response from President Obama. Let me play that.
Our intelligence communities spend a lot of time and effort gathering a lot of strands and a lot of data. There are times where they're very cautious. Say, we think this is what happened, but we're not certain.
Saying high confidence here.
This time, they've got high confidence, and having seen some of the underlying sources and information that they're basing this on, I stand fully behind the report.
What is that?
Hugh Hewitt, I will test your vocal cords again here, but I'm curious what you make of how Donald Trump is handling this, because I think to the casual observer, he does give the impression that what bothers him most about this story, what bothers him most about the intelligence report, is the possibility it raises that Russia had something to do with his victory in the election.
I think that's clearly what bothers him, Steve. But I also think what matters more than anything else, I had Senator Murphy on my show today from Connecticut, and he made the point that the Reid rule applies as to every single nominee. The only thing that can stop someone is a substantive issue. They're going to talk to Tillerson about a deal that he did in Kurdistan over oil. I believe that at the end of the day, the Russia issue will be brought up repeatedly in the course of the hearing with Tillerson, and he'll say the same thing that every other nominee will say, which is, we believe the Russians attempted to influence the election. It did not have a dispositive effect on the election, and it ought not to have anything to do with putting the national security team going forward in place. And so I think E.J. would agree with me on this. There will be a full and fair discussion of every nominee and every single issue, but the Russia issue is not going to slow down Jim Mattis, John Kelly, Dan Coates. It's not going to slow down Mike Pompeo at the CIA. And so at the end of the day, all of that is off subject. What matters is the new team is here, and it's going to be confirmed, and hopefully by the time next week rolls around, I'll have a voice back, and we'll have a complete cabinet.
That is tough for a radio host. We wish you a speedy recovery on that one. E.J., let me ask you it this way. Rex Tillerson, the question of Russia, at least the possibility when it comes to his confirmation that exists there is a Republican like John McCain, a Republican like Lindsey Graham, who has a very hawkish view when it comes to Putin, when it comes to Russia. Maybe they would see this confirmation battle as a way to make a point about that to Donald Trump, about maybe thinking he's not taking this seriously enough. Do you see any trouble for Tillerson? For that matter, do you see any trouble, bottom line, for getting confirmed for any of these nominees?
Well, I think Sessions is going to run into a real buzzsaw. He's got the advantage of being a sitting senator. Senators are usually soft on other senators, but I think the civil rights opposition there is very serious. But I hate to disagree with someone who's losing their voice, but I think you're right, Steve, that Tillerson is going to come is going to face a lot of questions about his relationship with Russia. And you're right to point to Lindsey Graham and John McCain as central to that. What I cannot for the life of me understand is why Donald Trump finds it so hard to say a single critical word about Vladimir Putin. He absolutely denied that the WikiLeaks business had any effect on the election. When he quoted WikiLeaks, I've seen his story over 100 times in the closing weeks of the election. We don't know exactly what effect it had, of course not. But the notion that the Russians were trying to influence the outcome and that they favored Donald Trump, I think that CIA report is very persuasive on that. And I just don't understand why Trump finds it so difficult to say, yes, there's an issue here and we'll deal with it. No, he has to keep defending Putin. I can't believe that that makes you at all that comfortable.
All right, E.J. Dionne and Hugh Hewitt, thanks for doing the show under the weather. We owe you one for that. Appreciate it.